We're back with Kevin Lynch and Robbie DeCourse. He was the head coach at Glencoe Silver Lake. Robbie, you were on the 86 and 87 state championship teams?
Yep.
And along with Kevin here. And I want to ask you guys, growing up, Kevin, you alluded a little bit to hanging out at the gym a lot with your dad and the teams he was coaching. But growing up, what kind of resources did you guys have for working on basketball? Or was it all on your own, just getting together and playing at the park? Or what did you guys do?
For me, it's a different time. We're talking decades ago now. So it's, the resources basically were summer basketball camps. I'd come to the Jefferson basketball camp in June, and it was just 2 or 3 hours for that week, Monday through Friday. And then, so I'd do that. That's within the program here in the school. Ron Levency down at Normandale Community College used to run his camp. I went to that camp a number of times in the summers when I was a kid. But a lot of it was kind of on your own. It wasn't anything like it is today with, fourth grade AAU teams that are flying to Las Vegas or Atlanta, all that kind of stuff. It was nothing like that. The basketball you played when we were kids, it was either a week-long summer camp someplace, or it was grabbing your buddies and going out to the driveway and playing. That's a lot of it, a lot of what it was. And you got to factor in too, back in those days, most kids, if they were playing basketball, they're also playing football and baseball or soccer or some other sport. So it's like, I grew up playing a ton of sports. It wasn't just basketball, but basketball was always my main one. But, it's just a completely different environment, and you didn't take it as serious, and you didn't get burnt out as much like I think some kids do now.
How about for you, Robbie?
I think just a lot of it was shooting in the driveway, trying to get in the gym. Kevin talked about basketball camp here. Normandale was a big resource. So we always had Normandale League through high school. That was a big thing playing down there. And just getting into gym. We couldn't always get into our own gym, so we drove around and snuck into other gyms as much as we could.
Wow, how times have changed.
Well, like this gym, I sometimes have told people it's amazing how we had so much success with this program back in the 80s, yet we couldn't get into this gym hardly at all. So we were sneaking into, there used to be a door down in Normandale Community College where it was locked, but if you yanked it hard enough, it would just open. So I'd just yank it, and I'd get in, and I was a ninth grader or whatever, and I'd start shooting and hit the lights. And sometimes Levency, who was the AD at the time, would come down there because he heard a basketball dribbling in the gym, and he would see it was me because I knew him. He'd just let me keep shooting and stuff. And so, we used to sneak into other schools' gyms and go get some basketball in it, especially if we couldn't get in here.
And now they've really found out that gym time and space is all about money now. It's all, you can't get into those places anymore. So it's kind of backed outside, or they have trainers now, and you guys are out and know all about that kind of stuff. How about BAA or traveling in the wintertime? Did you guys, went through those days too then, didn't you?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I just remember playing BAA basketball. We started in 4th grade and 5th grade, and then 6th grade is our first time we could try out for the traveling team, and playing traveling league for a couple of years, and our teams were pretty good and up and down. And then I think it was 8th grade that split into 2 teams, or was that 9th grade split into 2 teams?
Traveling?
Yeah.
Well, we had traveling through 9th grade, and then we had the school team at Olson. Yeah. So we had the school team and the traveling team.
So we had those. We had great coaches all the way coming through at Olson. They did the things that Jack and Jake wanted to do, and Coach I remember so much is Coach Montbryan, 9th grade coach. He changed things for me a lot. Probably the only reason why I continued playing basketball. For some reason, he saw something in me because I was about 5'6", maybe 105 pounds in 9th grade, and he still saw that. I just loved it, and he kept giving me a chance. And those are the things that stick with me today as I coach, giving that kid a chance, and never telling kids to give up. But those opportunities were there. You had that. They talk about the bomb, but you had the coaches who just kept asking you to work, and you worked, and you just did it for them because you trusted what they said.
Well, that's great.
Yeah, BAA that was kind of the first organized basketball at that time. It was, I don't know if it's 3rd or 4th grade, Bloomington Athletic Association. And my first year, so back in those days, they would actually, if it started in 4th grade, they merged 4th and 5th grade. Yeah, so you'd always play with older kids. when you started in fourth grade. And I think we had a decent team back in my first year when I was a fourth grader. I was a pretty good player. But, you got kids that have played already a year, and they're a year older as well. And then the next year, when I was a fifth grader, we won the city championship, and my dad was one of the coaches. And, for me, it's like I'm growing up in this basketball family. I got older brothers who played and that I looked up to when they were high school players. My father's one of the high school coaches. I mean, I would sit in class in fifth grade or fourth grade and just daydream. I mean, whatever subject they're teaching, whether it's math or physics typically, or trigonometry back when I was in fifth grade. But but no, in all seriousness, I would just sit and daydream. I couldn't wait until 7 o'clock that night, and I was 10 years old, and I was trying to focus on school, but it was hard because I couldn't wait to get in the gym that night and play a game that took probably 40 minutes or something. And then once traveling started at sixth grade, like Rob said, then you're playing tournaments on the weekends, and the seriousness of it, is a little bit more. And I loved every minute of it. I couldn't wait to get to tournaments or games.
Was your dad the coach for traveling then too, or?
No, he helped out mostly fourth and fifth grade. I think he did that, and for my BA teams. But Rod Daniels, Joel's dad was the main coach, and then he was coaching basketball at Jefferson. That was a long day to teach and coach, and then get to your little juniors BA basketball game. But he would help out when he could, as much as he could. But then I understood that. It never bothered me that he didn't maybe spend as much time with me as he did my older brothers. I didn't care. I was pumped to play, and that's all that really mattered.
Now you talked we talked a little bit about the aura of the program, the basketball program, and then I personally, the 81-82 year where John went to the state title game and they won it, we went and watched my senior class, which was 83 the next year. And when we were little, I was the same way, kind of like you were. My brother was the captain of the team and stuff, and I go to the games all the time and everything. And when we got to fifth grade with our peer group, we got together and said, we want to go to the state tournament. And then I remember watching John play in 82, and about four of us went from our team to go watch it. We said, we want to do this. And you talked about that progression that you guys had, going through the years and seeing those previous teams have success. But when did you guys really feel like you were going to be pretty darn good? Because you had a remarkable 3-year run there.
It was always, it was funny. I mean, and this is, the greatness of the Jefferson program at that time. I suppose we were, in some respects, one of the premier basketball programs in the state at the time. Obviously, the results kind of say that, but to answer your question, you didn't know, because I was a sophomore in 85, and I played with all seniors, and so then the following year, they're all gone. Everybody's new, really, except for me. And you're playing with basically all juniors. I was a junior, and everybody else is seniors. And then we win a state title. Then basically all those guys are gone. And so you're starting over every year, but the expectation is to win. And so for me, it's like you didn't really know how this is going to play out, how these new players are going to rise up as seniors, but they're older and they're seniors, and they expect success. And so, you never really knew how it was going to play out, but everybody, I would say Robbie would agree with us. We knew even at that time, we had great coaches, and so we had faith in what they were doing and how they ran everything. And so in some way, there's a little bit of an unknown because you didn't know, because all these guys were new basically every year, but you expected to have success. So, that's kind of how I remember it. You never really knew exactly how guys were going to respond, especially the new varsity players, but it always seemed to work out.
Yeah, and just, you look at that, like Kevin said, it's a new team from the 85 team and the 86 team. Our 86 JV team went undefeated, and we took pride in that. That was our team. And, really, when we were juniors, the only two juniors that played. Well, Kevin obviously was a star, but Danny Airwood was a really big part of that team.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people forget about that. So we had two guys that were very impactful in that state championship team in '86 coming back. But we were, still undefeated. And some of those games were close and tight, and you'd play the game before the varsity game. We played in front of packed gyms. I remember one St. Louis Park game that went into overtime, and the crowd was going crazy. And this was just a JV game. And so, you had that feeling of winning and what it took. But you knew that those guys were going to be good players. I mean, Tommy Batta, he would have played for most teams that junior year.
Right.
And those juniors knew, too, that Tommy was good. I remember he just was a really good shooter. And I remember in the scrimmage against Minneapolis North that year, and Tommy got in some varsity action, and the guys were looking forward to watching him come off and hitting shots. And so, they knew there was there. And then just the seriousness that we took, part of the program, and it was working over the summer. I mean, you guys played in a couple extra leagues. Guys were working at it in the fall, and those who didn't play football, we were in the gym as much as we could every day. We were going down to Normandale and playing, and trying to get prepared for that season. So there was that expectation to keep building.
So 84-85, let's just start off with that real quick. You're a sophomore, you're on a veteran team, got really good athletes and stuff. That can be a very uncomfortable situation for some kids sometimes. So how did you mesh with them, and how were you received by them? I don't mean to ask.
No, that's it. I like the question, and I think I have a lot to say, and I'll try not to ramble on too much. The number one, back in those days, the class sizes were so big back in those days that the guys that were seniors in '85, they didn't know that much about me because we basically stuck with our class.
Yeah.
And we grew up playing with, they didn't move kids up very much. Mm-hmm. And so I think the kids from '85 didn't really know me that well. They knew who I was. I knew I was the son of one of the coaches. The '86 group, the juniors that year, knew me a little bit better. But I didn't grow up playing with those guys either, really. So the seniors in '85 were great. That was Sean Day, Darryl Zachary, Al Hamilton, Jay Anderson, Danny Grant, Mark Peller, Eric Faber, Chuck Easley, great guys. They were wonderful. We just had this discussion last night. They're just great guys, and they were welcoming to me, even though they didn't know that much about me because I was 2 years younger. The '86 crew is a little bit different. They were. I think they were a little. That was a group of guys, and that's just a class older than me, that had a lot of success when they were 6th, 7th, 8th, when they were younger. They were like the best team in the metro. They were mowing everybody down. But as they got to 9th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, they didn't have as much success, and they were a little bit more protective as a group of their territory. So then I come along, and I'm the coach's kid, so that might have bothered a few of them, and so there was, I think, a little bit of that going on where it wasn't the seniors in '85 that mattered, so, at least from what I remember. They weren't bothered by me moving up and playing on the varsity. It was maybe more of the junior class, the '86 kids that didn't know me that well, that kind of had more of an issue. But as I always say, it's like, if they didn't like it, then all they had to do is, it took me about 5 or 10 minutes of that first practice, and all those juniors that year knew that I was better than all of them. That's how I always think of it. So, and at the end of the day, they're all good guys too. But and I eventually obviously helped them the following year when they were all playing on the varsity too. So, but it took a longer time, I think, for the '86 crew to warm up to me than it did for the '85 and the seniors that year. And obviously, it all worked out. So, yeah.
Okay. So you guys take us through the '86 year, and if there was any memorable moments or stories or games that you guys recall about that. I believe the '86 year and that 3-year run you guys had was the only year in there that you didn't win a conference title.
Yeah, well, I'll let you go on '86 a little bit.
I guess the game that sticks out for me was, I think we just moved up to number 1 in the state, and we went to Kennedy, and we got beat. I mean, they handed it to us. We're just looking at the box score.
They were very good.
They had a really good team.
Yeah.
They were led by juniors, though. Tommy Johnson had 16 points in that game, and Steve Schramm had 15 points in that game. And I think it was just a surprise to the team.
And against Jefferson, that's like a 40-point game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was, and so I think that was just a shock, and the guys really took it another way. But I also remember, the expectations put on us by the coaches. I remember being in the locker room after that game, and Coach Evans said, "I don't ever want to have this feeling again," and that set a tone for the rest of the season.
Yeah, we lost that Kennedy. So we were ranked like third in the state to start junior year, 85, 86 year. And then the teams that were ranked right above us, they must have lost pretty quick, and we were like 4-0. And so we went to number 1 in the state. And this is early on, this is early December or whatever it was. And then we went to Kennedy, and they beat us, the game that Robbie's talking about. Yeah, that's my memory, just a disappointing performance by us, and we just got ranked number 1 in the state at the time. And then we played Burnsville, and Burnsville beat us here at home. And we go from number 1 in the state, 4-0, to 4-2, and kind of out of the rankings. And then we kind of straightened things out for a while. But that team took a little while to kind of figure it out that season. Then we went on a tear and won like 12 games in a row. And then we lost another game at the end of the season against St. Louis Park, who was pretty tough at their place. And that set us back a little bit. But yeah, and then, but the thing is about the 86 team is we had, number one, we had talent, obviously. We had good talent. We didn't have great chemistry. We kind of had a cliquey team, and a few guys were in that senior class kind of had their own agenda a little bit.
It's kind of interesting to hear.
Yeah, they did a little bit, had their own agenda somewhat, but it didn't tear the team down at all. But the way I see our team is we were probably one of maybe 5 or 10 teams in the state that year that were good enough to win the state championship. And something clicked. You asked me about the top game that season that first, we played Armstrong in that regional game junior year at St. Louis Park. Or maybe we played a first game before that game to win, and then we played Armstrong the following game in the quarterfinals of the region, and we won a really tough game. And John Walker, I got to give credit to John Walker, one of the seniors on that team, had like 20, and he just, for whatever reason, just took off the rest of the season, and we rode him all the way through to the state title game. And so I guess my point is we were one of a bunch of teams that probably were good enough to win a state championship. We just happened to start clicking at the right time, and we were playing better than all those other teams. And so, yeah, we beat Armstrong, and then we beat St. Louis Park, and then Wayzata in the regional finals, and we were starting to play good, and things were clicking. And then we take care of business against Faribault in a close game. Now we're in the semifinals of the state tournament, and we have St. Paul Central, the number 1 team in the state, and we drub them by 25. We just killed them. And here we are, state championship game against Duluth Central, who was undefeated, I think, at that point. And we had played them in a Christmas scrimmage during Christmas break. We went up to Duluth and scrimmaged those guys, and my memory is they handed it to us. Mm-hmm. And so they were probably coming in pretty confident into that state championship game in '86, but we were a different team at that point, and we won a really, really tough game and to win a state title. So it was an interesting team. That was probably, I think if you'd asked Jack and Jake about the 4 state championship teams, they'd probably both point to '86 and say that was a bit of a surprise, that team. Like I said, not great chemistry, but good talent, and we were just playing well at the very end, and that was a fun one.